me know you guys are good.
I don't see the file in the file share.
Did you refresh?
Yeah, let me try.
It's the same thing I sent you. Like, I just took it from our text.
Alright. If that's the same thing, I'm fine.
I don't see it.
Okay, wait, I'll just make a speech of them. The code is C or lowercase c, lowercase b, lowercase k, capital H, lowercase m, capital A. It's also in the chat.
Alright, I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Advantage 1 is conflict resolution. Tensions are high. China has stepped up gray zone operations in the Philippine territory, priming the SCS as a flashpoint for territorial aspirations. Batista 25. SCS and flashpoint had tensions, ramming of the shoal as it flies gray zone operations seized into Chinese territory 2016, ruling invalidated China dismissed Beijing as vision to reorder based on strength. Philippines adopted direct confrontation for the United States. SCS credibility as a security guarantor in close contrast with Beijing microcosm marvel to prevent future depend on rule of law to bring crisis. It causes quick nuclear escalation craft. 24. Chinese states develop nuclear tried nuclear force used against targets in the Philippines, identifying confidential conflicts women in the Philippines and Taiwan in question. Overseeing this and escalate very quickly the high level tension threat of WMDs. 1. Hard. Immediate and clear ratification, shores, alliances, and checks back against expansion. And the alternatives are too legalistic to work hard. 24. Intensing the efficacy of gray zone operations, increased access to bases, allows superior massive police modernization, Coast Guard enables law enforcement, creating regularized presence. American policy in the seas is ill-suited, phone ups, and effective measures, narrow self-interest, effort laws which prompt U.S. ratification, view close creation, and operation approach it exploits law benefits from U.S. willing to pursue declarative policy. Seattle does not meet contemporary environment, self-extension, binding rules, 2. Legalistically content, signal capability, bolster rules-based order. 2. Is stop becoming party boost. Credibility enables conflict resolution, reduces reliance on exploratory finance. 2. U.S. credibility is comprised instead of shutout. Allows remaining hesitant with the U.S. only means managing technology, but diplomacy legitimacy. The U.S. provides U.S.'s market just the ratification of power of the U.S. But tools to convert Chinese over talking like news non-membership means credibility leveraged by not signing up for the same rule book. China says membership to dismiss criticism and ability to cooperate with allies and the brother transfer prizes like max this before frustrates ability to weigh an arbitration head observer status refuge and legitimacy and signal seriousness maintaining everyone peaceful non-escorting means managing competition especially the SS but not increasing potential for escalation. Anything else zero is conflict resolution cross 23. Russia take the vast majority of developing Canadian nations claims that being party can go to enable person to dismiss on that promote collective security activated mere observer naval power and maritime openness secures cables and critical shipping routes and gaps conflict escalation to multiple hotspots. Patnello to New York. Naval power central feature Black Sea, Red Sea, assets Taiwan, the primary unrest, open economy, ocean, maritime connectivity, internet, industrialist and sea cables, pipelines, and commercial shipping routes, maritime connectivity, express China, specifically naval rights and major war in the China SCS, near the Chinese seas or Taiwan or beyond. Trade cultures cause global nuclear war. GMIT. Duty intention reviews is a threat. I hope of a peaceful resolution is far-fetching. There is willing to concede, miscalculate, move, create, open, where these catastrophe tensions are not to be in Iran, and the U.S. Middle Eastern outside are also experiencing from Britain, Saudi, Japan, North Korea. And geopolitical trade relevant to the needs of every country. The world attacks disruptive production capability. U.S. protection of rebates for global regulations restricting pollution. 17. English to provide solution for potential expansion. The way you include stipulation pollution regulation of countries are continuing to extract massive agreements by standing close to the U.S. will reinvigorate a sustainable future. Marine pollution triggers cascading. Chobe collapse, reducing pollution is America's only hope for survival. Dreaded. 21. Plankton levels drop due to pollution when the chemical sugar Chobe collapse coming to the edge between vaccine use varieties surviving less action taken with our less for system implemented the gauntlet change in place. Plan the United States ought to become party to the nation convention on the law of the sea. Ratification is good and comparatively outweighs their disadvantages. 1 is expert consensus. All relevant officials agree ratification is good, linked to being advised by nuance, speed, times, coaching, etc., which means only consensus matters. Erickson 15. Nucleus ratification is supported by the President, Secretary of State, the Defense Chairman of GCS, and the Navy Marine Corps, Coast Guard, the living predecessor of Republican Democratic Revolution. There are many experts for unanimous ratification as a great idea. 3 is 2 is uniqueness. The U.S. complies with all close under customary national law. 20. Uniqueness in practice is complies with all treaty provisions. Advantage 2 is credibility. Credibility is the key gap in each station posture. Otherwise, the U.S. is in the liability which towards alliances. 24. Non-membership impedes credibility, not asking other countries to ratification, building relations with other partners, experts, inhibits ability to cooperate, not cooperate, phone ups with allies, and you see there will be the burnt files, the U.S. assumes the allies cannot. You see as a liability, ratification provides access to settlement where the U.S. has to participate in this war. The Philippines tribal moves not and will not charge to Russia, joining in charge of military force protection, maintenance of alliance commitments in East Asia, Kreska, joining bring major benefits for transport, not to visa transit. The choke point, bedrock of U.S. force presence, maintenance of alliance commitments in East Asia, any perceived wavering in U.S. commitment cause East Asian prolife. Harvey 19. Alliances, the centerpiece of the peaceful world, critical, assuring commitment by extending power, loss of confidence, and security commitments cause allies seek accommodation, so good Japan have much more latent nuclear capabilities, advanced economies, the nuclear power perceived wavering commitment has developed nuclear weapons that causes nuclear war. Tier 16, nuclear is with nuclear programs. By 2020, will have ability to hit the US with a missile as many as 100 warheads. So Japan have the technology to build a shorter wipe. So Japan nuclearize the umbrella calls from the January to develop a Soka order to go nuclear. Japan plot to we've been dangerous destabilizing operation involving Japan. So China and India, Pakistan, the chance of catastrophic would greatly increase independently strong alliances set the norms for transnational cooperation, which solve a host of existential risks. I can very these events are world competition would destroy institutions, democracy, descend into disunion, lose ability to shape norms, partnership threatened by climate, pandemics, financial crisis, failed states, proliferation, automation, other upheavals, despite fault, no principle, come close to global, international, and cooperative world, and rights and security in the rule of law inherent. What's unique about is the liberal orders, the capacity for self-correction, shortcomings fail, and commission to achieve cooperating with Japan, Europe, and America, foster growth, manage crisis, arctic phone off, cost escalation with Russia, and collapse of Canadian relations. Also, 19. Russia and the US started game shaking the Arctic military conflict. Military conflict, Arctic phone likely to result in disaster, trigger military confrontation linked to more assertive Russian will damage US-Canadian relations. And the Russia could threaten to sink US ships continuing phone up. Russians are extending A2AD, and lacking these capabilities leaves vessels vulnerable to ice imbalance, makes phone up militarily dangerous. Failure would build perception US can't compete in Russian game with violating up and have ripple effects in NATO's posture and American Canadian dispute the Northwest Canadian order. The Americans who contest Canada dispute those trade relations, the implication for political security, cooperation. US should launch counter narrative focus on nuclear with private understand passage. US special war causes extinction. Harker 17. Smoke would absorb sunlight, causes steam cooling, ozone loss, ag disruption, nuclear winter drop in temperature to 8 degrees Celsius, make it possible to go through threat extinction. From electricity would be great. Marked card there. US Canadian cooperation mitigates existential threats and deters hostile escalation shows. 32. US Canadian defense relation. China, Russia's acute threat. Iran nuclear terrorist orders, independent climate change threat relation. World is moving more terrorist rules based order under threat. We're facing average states in the to deter the order. Climate disaster drawn. Resources causing migration, conflict, development causing war, polarization, distant betraying democracy. And the challenge of US Canadian strong commitment. Russian decision to make major stir, but the US and Canadian response provide assistance. Framing the standard is preventing extinction. Palmer 15. Reducing existential risk is the most important to Trump their trillions of Russians to future people, even though we're given 0.01% switching, not consequence to do the law to matter, minimum possible for some approach with things like trying to put moving for very strong reasons. To reduce exerts, give their 9% sure that strong reason will also achieve roots. Exerts descendants could make the future very good, and reckless sense history would be acting wrongly. Go back to. It's at a tipping point. Renewed commitment to globalism solves every risk. Shady. Do not tipping point. All the current crisis accelerate trends. Nuke war, eco collapse, and tech disruption, and biotech catch-up consequences. Need for clients. Global culture to effectively address factors several tech global cooperative program. New ILAW paradigm.
Cross-X?
Yeah.
Only thing exempt was condo?
No.
Wait, you said something after the plan text. You said ratification was good and outweighs their DAs. Did you
Like
say
a session matters most because link debating is biased by coaching and speed disparities.
Wait, what matters most?
Consensus.
Oh, consensus matters most. Oh, never mind then. Okay.
So like voting.
Okay, yeah. The advantage to Canada relations, we just like tariff them. Obviously, this card is pre-Trump. How does the plan enough to overwhelm all those alt causes and build up the Canadian relationship?
It's about the defense relationship. Certain questions of like economic trade, etc., are relevant because we made a specific claim about like the Russia and China. As long as we express that these are threats, I think Canada will cooperate with us because we have the largest military in the world.
Okay. Why would they not cooperate? If we have the largest military in the world, why would they suddenly stop cooperating with us because of one photo op?
Well, it wouldn't be one phone op. It's the fear that we're trying to take the Northwestern Passage, which is vital to their like oil supplies.
So they do care about things like the economy then, right?
Well, they care about us trying to take their territory. I think that's a military concern.
Okay, sure. Advantage 1, the marine pollution scenario, the Dryden evidence indicates that unless we stop plastic pollution in the next 5 years, there's going to be this trophic collapse. Obviously, stopping plastic pollution is far more extreme than what UNCLOS would do. How does UNCLOS get close to solving this?
Well, I think it says that we should end plastic pollution, not like plastic production. The part above says we would integrate sustainable standards for the use of plastic, so that would limit things like plastic pollution.
Okay, but this is just the U.S. doing it. Why isn't every other country, especially
no,
like the EU,
build like stipulations within the UNCLOS?
What? So like we'd modify? Wait, no. UNCLOS. It says UNCLOS already has those stipulations.
No. It says UNCLOS has stipulations, but the U.S. would revitalize them.
Okay, why are those stipulations weak right now? The EU is doing things like banning plastic water bottles and stuff like that. Why would it change its posture, especially again after we just tariffed them?
Well, because the UNCLOS lacks credibility because the largest military in the world is not a member, so nobody takes the treaty seriously.
Okay, sure. Advantage 2, the alliances, sure. The globalism scenario, and just credibility as a whole. What actions does UNCLOS enable us to do that boosts credibility? Like, is it just naval posture or what?
Well, I think we've isolated 2 things. The first is like naval posturing, because we're able to like operate in other areas through FON and things. But the second is that it also builds like credibility because we're able to have access to things like conflict resolution forums. We're able to file legal suits. I think one example that the card cites is like in 2016, there was a tribunal against China because of like.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. The standard, I guess, seems to justify why extinction matters if consequences matter. Review justified why consequences are relevant.
Well, we think that it also justifies under non-consequentialist frames.
Okay. I'll send out orders NCAC. Okay, it's in the speech shop. You want to mute and zero the volume on your thing, so yeah. Okay. Lydia, let me know when you're ready. I put it in the speech shop. Orders just NC the next day.
That framework?
Oops, sorry, 1 sec. Okay, sorry, my volume was 0. What were you saying, Lydia?
What's the order on case?
It's F framework F.
Okay, I'm good.
Parker, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, Sid, you're good?
Yep.
Okay. The United States should make a promise to abide by all practices from the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, follow through without promise. The capital assaults as is not beneficial, aligns the U.S. with the cosmopolitan legal order, without violating sovereign external for unique sovereignty and secure sovereignty compatible with the convention. No need to enact legislation not follow U.S. as a party would implement the existing laws. The system convention meet obligation of permissibility and presumption negate one falsity. We presume statements false because statements are more often false because we're being one part false disputes. The entire statement shall waste because logical occurrences concern of every argument. 2, negating is harder. A, first and last speech controlling debate. B, 1, I cannot play creating 7, 6 times CC. F, can compare time. 3, controversy, triple obligation prohibition and permissibility proving 1 disputes to others since they're intertwined or shall waste because interact with each obligation for precision of the resolution says which means for obligation. That's Webster. The meta thing is practical reason. Ethical says we have a priori 1 uncertainty experiences left within our own subjectivity and our inaccessible others. However, a priori principles are created in the numeral world and are universally applied to all agents. Always because finding ethics in the phenomenal world allows people to justify atrocities, but saying they don't experience the same too. It's not gap experiences in the phenomenal world only tells us what is not what ought to be, but it is impossible to derive an author from discrete premises. So there needs to be additional a priori premises within the numeral world to make a moral 3 and 3. Double endowment, pain and pleasure are binding source. Ethics 6 we have pain sensation favor cause of what explains 2% do louder considering contrary to the God of evolution. It is that pain sadness depends on being the state of the creature has to be that then kills practical reason 1 valid theory instincts of goodness across unconditional human work only use of the reason means that action action otherwise it has no moral worth. Course anything we're not being simple shows this supposed object code for good and as the unconditional good kind of inclination those unconditional world if condition do not exist their object would be without worthless and humanity are also capable of conferring value and shows in how it should be valid but expected value every actual being is reason to them 2 because we can question everything some reason to only act for universal reason development is for no authority stable we ask why desire what reason and reason factor for using see authority to be act on consideration valid for anyone who takes it we steal we take act for property 30 desire when we for their property separate reasons for us or other the concept of reason only collective will that can have power over individual can guarantee the force of good max and political break for unilateral problem state of nature unilateral will can put everyone under obligation requires will there's omniality united opera unilateral can serve as law would infringe upon universal laws the right to freedom with practical reason to cross possibility of acquiring external object can be acquired inconsistency with freedom and see for state with omniality will and Kantian ethics and state to maintain absolute sovereignty thus the standard is consistency with state sovereignty cosmopolitan relations should remain voluntary starter 16 Kantian legitimacy of state cannot be disembodied for cosmopolitan intervention these sorts of obligation trying to be domestic citizens and citizens of the world ever losing sovereignty state cannot be corresponded heteronormal external quotient incompatible state authority subsides considers towards the people the universal state of nations states should voluntarily accommodate themselves that means the C resolution must be non-compulsory starter 16 per contract defined by course and requires enforcing each sovereignty has required state consent compulsory force debate states enforced without renewal of their consent once initially granted impact outcomes subject consequences 1 intent foresight distinction lack of it is morally reprehensible if forces child murder at least identify what one foresees the belief about the future criterion of success or intent is satisfactory to their case of heterosexually pregnant women with a cancerous uterus and dystopic the spread of cancer precede the fetus will almost certainly be killed suppose the baby's rise it's a discrepancy between and tetra and the will we must concede and tetra is opposite satellite that the baby must kill a true problem of doctrine it's circular human 1772 nature rechange object 10 different past of tax secures arguments had and cause and effect knowledge that religion drug fed experience solutions post future will pass through this problem arguments going in a circle and negate unclose violence back running on nucleus has compulsory bonding to settlement mechanisms either pedally unilaterally take either to see solid all of these are conditional should be touched in passing improves half writing system need plinky words win flex warner stages makes getting impossible logic action win by the Sasco defense for substantive makes you inevitable but the different shade towards limited so is meaningless links are offensively permitted through world peace no straight arguments the one to see and we start debate and the 1 hour lawyer breaking debates on Brian Clash and the create massive I've been for that no cosmopolitan order actually skip that and here's some more offense 1 joining us either unconstitutional or violates the treaty coup 60 just legality yes international tribunals removal appellate repeat puts a challenge to article 3 of the US refuses to execute to would be in violation of the unclose 2 either violate the categorical imperative to follow 20 on no line promise apply the CI if everyone made a line promise wouldn't believe 1 but not impose escape 3 unclose authorizes international taxation coup 60 constitutional objection unclose authorizes international tax use usages. The 4 taxation is course of that 24 tax are not contractual tax are debt depending through coercion. All forms here being different assets transferred regardless of consent. Every obligation is robbery. The use will not occur with the transfer is robbery. 5 prior to pre-fiat they lie by only defining unclosed which kills to meet the resolution of verdict. 6 intervening possible. 6 violates the state's right to sovereignty. First, when you only close running result of loss of sovereignty or $2 to interest in a vehicle because there's a lawsuit on U.S. Act and best interest and should fall. He was sentenced to reduction membership. 7 the state has duty to support its own domestic interest first. Anything else results in contract between the state and its agency. On case framing. Sid, learn from Darsh. Please read a framework. Extinction doesn't matter. 1 assumes consequences those are relevant under our framework. 2 falsely abortion even if it is necessary for ethics. You don't need to maximize it. Same as auction. Ethics are what we do under life. 3 freezes action. We'd have to infinitely consider every risk for they have foresight. Yes, extinction. Multiple people can intend the same action to have different consequences. That means you can't wait. Extinction consequences are a part of one's intent. 5 confidence. Use it. A modesty is incoherent because it relies on another framework to evaluate strength of links. B it's also an automatic balance. Our offense is infinite undercon, but there's officially isn't. 6 freedom violations are weight. A probability there's certain. B magnitude. They're worse because actors intrinsic value is being infringed on. C time for their intent. The case answering the dumb impacts here. Pollution solved by spark. You can't pollute if there's no plastic. Uniqueness overwhelms the cancer of the fabric of the economy. 3 years inserted no ocean acidification. Mara has 22 17 is caused water reduction. pH acidification possible because of the well better experiment get sample with the cool on change calcification. Brothercratic calcification. Secondary drones are a lot of us reject those. They're unwarranted. Only non-war terminals are climate, which is checked by spark, any pollution and disease, which is checked by the reality trade-off. Scientific assessment negates nuclear extinction is currently impossible, and war now is better than war later was. 24 unicorns unlikely to risk extinction, which just have a great purpose, but scientifically does not support the view of every state or sector because BC injection would be far less than the pillaging extinction robot. But we couldn't go to say no current arsenal cause extinction weapons have to be designed for use as a result is conceivable future stockpiles. We launch Earth extinction. 4 cars, no scientific calls, no war, no studies, no 1 air terminals, they pick discourage clash, and 1 C was based off of that 1 AC. Catalyzed the transition, 1 resource to could be 17 interest, so plastic cannot be rebuilt. We have a physical reoxide, coal, metallic ore, stone. No species can climb to high level type resources are not acceptable, but the ability to take 1 to 10,000 years will not have not 2 EMP, but 21 IOP attackers in use devastated grid sensor communities has 1,000 miles away, not electricity face catastrophic consequences on electronics. AGI comes by 2047, grades 24, largest over 2,778 researchers in top tier findings the chance of issues outperforming 50%, 2047, 13 years earlier than Silver Survey, only 1 year earlier. But Senate and equilibrium are existential. Margin 24 in the solid AI replicating rush without oversight, causing civil and errors to making these governments taking pull of TA and Evo dominant company exposed political literacy for alignment for scientists to opposition. AI is highly civilization vulnerability with symmetry weapons for abuse, loss, increasing catastrophic events. AI laws, small groups of power struggle over Taiwan, associate US and child leading AI joined by weapons to extent, separatize cyber pricing into co-pox that make Earth uninhabitable wars that are specific AI techniques likely possibilities foreseeable. AI is way after 16 as 16 also free that exists because we're exposition based feature but not quality of factors under space to be options sometimes overstating possible AI similar to colonization and state suffering for mind suffering minds for benefit one might argue so I speculate however even if probability once there is small partly at least one will occur maybe high be rare lots of people understand to sexual slightly strategy over have high value uncertainty can be reason to welcome effort. DQS happens and causes extinction to progress in quantum is an accidental threat. There are no physical limitations regarding self. There's political desire, huge injustice, which is society also scientific motivation, even while commercial relevance keeps increased exponentially 50% in 2040s by interpolating development. DQS amplify experts with significant probability DQS accelerate improvement of governance quantum by medical experience free device much more dangerously solved or reported and shared. There's even a slight increase was threat. Largest of the risk 1 relativistic kill muscles. You have 23 relativistic physics of the Pandora's box of accidental pressure rods from God involves Huxley rods which reach relativistic speech restricted power connected bombardment or deeply certain entries of relativistic particles with new weapons. These reduce catastrophic impacts to laser system 21 directed energy weapons promise to be more prudent than use the laser concept of the solid military and we all life would be destroyed in an instant. 21 million died and a minute could destroy any country to its countries or make laser for military purposes. The only card I marked was the Marahasi card at calcification.
Okay.
I'm good.
Wait, are you gonna unmute or should I?
I think you should unmute just because like you're asking the questions.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, cool. The con pick, like T and or, is this relevant if we be conned?
Yeah.
Why?
Because you haven't met your burden.
Okay, Sid learned from Adarsh, please review the framework. What were the arguments in between this and Spark?
1 extinction doesn't matter. 1 it assumes consequences. 2 or do you want me to like just read them again?
No, you just like summarize them, like
Yeah,
consequences
okay.
impossible.
Okay, so 1 it assumes consequences which are relevant under con. 2 fallacy of origin. 3 freezes action. 4 intense foresight distinction brings out. 5 epistemic conflicts because A modesty is incoherent. B it's an automatic ballot. 6 freedom violations outweigh on probability, magnitude, and time frame.
Okay, and the warrant for the last 2 is because your offense is infinite.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Spark, the Marahasi evidence. Oh, that's the card you marked.
Yeah, calcification.
Okay, the card labeled consensus is no extinction. Like, which line do you think says consensus?
Sure. It says well, it cites Robach, which is the AF author, and it also cites quote the current scientific literature does not support the view that
That
climatological
climatological
effects.
effects would be sufficient to cause extinction.
Yeah, which is the warrant in 1AC Farquhar, because the warrant in
Okay.
1AC Farquhar is black smoke. And
Sure. Were there any voting issues besides topicality?
No.
Okay. The Jacobi evidence
Nothing.
says it could probably not rebuild. Coal, oil, and metallic ores are those the resources you think we would run out of?
Yeah, which are all necessary to build things like AI, tech, etc.
Okay. The Benjamin evidence says that the EMP has disrupted telephone service for a period of time, but they've obviously come back. How would EMPs be permanent?
Well, the EMPs from every nuclear weapon being launched would be far more. Those short-term EMP blasts are much less because A, they weren't caused by the radiation from a nuclear weapon, and B, once every nuclear weapon is launched, they completely take out the grid, and there would be no possibility to get the grid up again because the EMP wiped out all electricity.
The McDonald evidence says like degrowth policy. Where in here do you think it says like an impact?
So the card I didn't read says several things about degrowth, but
you said the only card you marked. Hey, what other cards did you skip?
Sure. So on the spark stuff, I skipped mirror bacteria, antimatter bombs, and turns the Earth into pure energy.
Okay, and then on the other page.
Wait, let me just make sure that's everything. Read everything else on spark. Oh, and I skipped the all causes to relations on like the Canada stuff.
Okay. Sure.
And then the McDonald card. Kant, I read all the cards.
Okay, that's fine. The next argument was the digital quantum simulation. What is that?
Sure. Digital quantum simulations, as per the Schaeffer evidence, once we get quantum computing up, they have no physical limitations to being able to do things like simulate things, put people into machines, cause infinite pain to them, and generate universes and things that cause infinite suffering. It would also cause extinction because there would be no governance. It would increase the risk of existential threats, cause things like biomedical experiments, which spread. So it would cause both S and X risk.
Okay. That was 3 minutes. That was 10 seconds. So 3 minutes and seconds. Awesome. Okay. It's named the same thing. There's like a 2 around it
Okay.
instead of a 1.
Okay. Just case framing con.
Case, T and or the config.
Wait. Is like the util like framing gonna be
On the con.
on con? Okay. Yeah. I'm good.
Harker, you good?
Yes.
Lydia, you good? Wait, okay. Foot after friend after Wednesday, go nuclear, cause Chinese war, reject sparks, pedagogically invaluable, and won't get debate funded, which is part of fairness and clash to prove my Marlboro and Harboristic admin, drop them for deterrence. Nuclear war causes CGS 1 year terminals will be low start, 15 nucleus, so not predicting partial loss of amateurs, low 28 NPO, and the hide is now the dissection into the place from ventures rather than sun effects. Accommodating large magnetic field, nucleus, induced, and observed nucleus, and strong anti-gravitational effect over nuclear partial comparable water, atmosphere, arches, spirit of Mandela, secret facilities with the emerald, BS, including emerald. No, yes, 1 year terminals, it's not new author. The for carbon, it says X and distance calculation 1 is arbitrary and is bending it's a little hard to, is arbitrary and possible to predict, and non-resolute and non-jurisdictional is rejected to his clash, but model set as solely searching for minute irrelevant floating internal links and ending bad news testing kills education which wide takes 1 maybe 1 year killing fairness 3 skews 3 stalls while they're offense and 2 gets card no consensus it says 1 person but consensus as Nag Gates Moon Willis and Narian 24 scientists concur nuclear would cause worldwide damage in the case of nuclear winter conceded consensus matters most linked debating is biased by nuance speed etc which means only the consensus can come to the correct outcome and the conceded the consensus scholars think the plan is a good idea so vote after this should come before all of their other offense because it's dropped DQ is limited and good inserted in blue the again probability but also your card says not likely in slide is EMPs are limited and relevant there's no transition if there's survivors you should impact calc for expecting future value coming to the foods about like menus with nice accessibility accessibility farm survivors a little short on how you'll copy on problem march by palatable reason joining about futures representative of action users copy only 0.7 of the world survive 200 near 2,184,000 working agriculture lands capable of quickly rebuilding site so quickly literate and the waiting the roots of is metal forging metals have been used much quicker into distracting UH advanced weapons tools and just for industrial instrument and arsenal defense there's so much we not know the way industrial only we cannot imagine nuclear war may destroy themselves there's so much to protect 99.7% less than fast future carbon even though just it's infected this where they're surviving this probably should be able to create these other survivors for the potential cause may not be that just leaving that huge wrong lines below are often cause their strickland to the working salary tag line for military tax and structurally benevolent and the church and card is miscut says negative authorship 1980s but 21st century's exponential all things already exist volcanoes asteroids now it's inserted in blue wait my words crashed that's that okay I guess it just didn't save. I'll send this card after. Language is not quantifiable. Luke, 2D literature by intelligence, ability to render in relevance, measure ability to think abstract and creatively impossible, code novel, and poster by AI are not sensible without full understanding language and nuances. HR will make impossible. AI is good. Invert upsides to maximize it. Gilson 24. Assume phenomenal growth as change A will end the world dog to represent risk. There's such a substantial change A will end humanity take a chance of killing everyone in two bills and least standard A helps deliver healthier longer life saving power chips. So kind of cancer heart disease, average life expectancy, double the risk of risk people willing to teach those with ARS willing to sex, SGD more willing to lose to gamble and communicate effects on brother Muslim population. Not about problem can the plan man's Canadian relations by solving the perception that we're gonna take their trade solves the other risks that spark solves. T and or we must be allowed to specify either or both. Apps can't specify both, can see precision outweighs goes after card is an opinion of losing side sort of blue and or can mean to be either or both Mary most or and or and game between or they drop them for deterrence to conflict. The app is good under our framework, which is sufficient, so proves an obligation. Frameworks are inclusive, magnifies neg when conditions come fairness, audits potential supply, not universal use, minimizing extinction, what is magnitude, infinite future, and probabilistically outweigh, and is infinite to its reversal later, risk your wrong concludes fixing ethical mistakes, for actor spec, death counts, are most reward best for education, wide debates, money, sports, inclusion, best it's easy to count deaths on novices, to learn debate, progressive difference, class 3 is very, 5 is very filled, but it's possible to set deaths, not essentially killing education, 6 is you, maybe 1 is framing, makes 4, 7, unchallengable, you, killing fairness, 7, topic, ed, fill, enables black second, distance, research, and unique clash, killing education, naturalism, best popular, 7, off, effect, to the moral, natural causes, the mental cap, lies, the range, world facts, never making a difference, physical world knowledge, media, by filter, by systems, and world facts, not, if the world is hard to see how we can have any knowledge of them, no as our gap describes odd, because naturalism is salient, foot, 1, odd can be derived from days, we can say human beings odd derived from facts, and nourishing there are many facts, and ways need root as it should be, you can predict the flooring, our species, this is also the consensus, which outweighs Darwinian dilemmas app, avoiding pain proves it's salient. Induction is wrong. Can't assume specific instances like the app, which is unique. No impact to circularity. Reason is circular, so con is only util is not circular. Since we use death as bad or cheap obligations, satisfy audits, require binding ethics, certainties, solved by naturalism, scientific investigations, universalizable, regressive. Reason is regressive. Determining reason requires more regress. Objective truths like 1 + 1 = 2 are possible in neuroscience validates. Util, the butterfly effect is wrong. Tino uncertainty is relevant, so we model them out. Masochism is wrong. Still pursue pleasure and need life. AOT is wrong. Inaction is just as bad. No movement obligations because capabilities limit to culpability. And the course guard evidence is wrong. Util is objective. It agrees happiness matches those inserted in green. Naturalism solves regress. We should follow utilitarianism. It includes inserted in green. The DePaul evidence is the straw person. The Palka evidence is that state ruling is necessary. So the Alice is good.
Okay. 5 minutes. Only voting issues were must not contest framework, must allow me to specify, must not read Spark. Anything else?
Let me see.
Wait, Lynbrook, I can't really hear you.
He was just asking about voting issues. And then the like fill stuff.
Yeah, so like must not read con.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, did you have paper?
No, I don't.
Worms. Are you good if I go grab paper? Actually, no, it's too far.
no dot quarters, or wait, let me, gonna mute and volume.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay, no dot quarters, Kant, and then like theory kind of. Yeah, so it'll be Kant. I'll handle Kant that on the Kant page, and then just like must not read T and or, and then Spark is a voter. Okay. Harker, you're good. Sid, you're good.
Yeah.
Lydia, are you good? Okay. At the top on Kanti's video issue, first the one-year said that non-social theory was bad. It said that it was arbitrary and created a slippery slope, which was done on the no one-year terminal space. I'm explicitly conceded that, which takes out all the TJFs on Kant because they just prove why they don't prove why Kant is wrong, and it creates a slippery slope where debaters can use a theory to justify why nuclear, why you should concede the absent advantage or must concede internal link, etc., which is regressive and extract under social theory. It's unlimited, unpredictable in nature, which makes it impossible to meet it every single list of natures. That ways one, engage we can respond to response knowing if they're good norms to nature must norming is a considered purpose of theory. Now, extractional ways will be done later, but extractional ways will be done later. I'll answer verifiably right here. You can verify and you can get education from our offense because you get topic education about things like lying, about constitutional processes, which are best. Independently, our framework is best. Our framework is best because policy based require extensive evidence that's on both sides for constructors and 1 year and 2 in our cards, which criticize alone wolf debaters out of ways because access is prerequisite to things like education. It doesn't meet the 1AC because you could have just read a framework instead of just reading extractional ways topic end. No impact to it, and our model still solves for topic end. And TJFs are incoherent because they're illogical. You should be able to theoretically justify truth claims, and it creates a slippery slope, which is their argument in the 1 hour. Now, first, if I win the meta ethic, I win this debate because our meta ethic filters out consequences they drop. The intent gives actions moral worth, which shows out utilitarianism. To take an action, an agent needs to believe the object of that action would be good. That requires something that is unconditionally good. In all actions, the good is agency or the ability to set and pursue ends. That means we must unconditionally respect agency as an intrinsic good. They say naturalism is best. They drop a few arguments here. First, the no evidence just say a priori truth fails. This is warrantless. Read their card. We use a priori truths all the time, i.e. 2 plus 2 equals 4, which I can deduce, and I don't have to use the natural word at all. Card D highlight, not have a warrant, and was not implicated. Doesn't answer anything because we can use a priori truths and doesn't explain why naturalism is best at all. They say it's not a gap. I'm not going for that argument, which means that it's irrelevant, but Kant definitely solves because the reason why we ought to use reason is because the reason why we ought to use reason is because it is the foundation for all ethics in the numeral world. Now, to reject our evolutionary ethics, this is dropped. They dropped that they are entirely contingent. If we evolved differently, we would have different perspectives on pain and pleasure. That fails to release a universal obligation, which they dropped that they need to have, which was on the permissibility flow, because opposite obligation could always be created. For example, we could always evolve in a way that makes it so there's an infinite obligation to act to the plan. We can't aggregate these obligations since they're entirely different ethical system and contradictory, which at worst triggers permissibility for them, but at best filters out all their framework because we could have just evolved differently. The 1 year's response was that we evolved to like pleasure, which is our argument because it proves that all of their ethic is based off of evolution, which is not a reliable source for ethics. The induction fails. This takes out all of their framework. It means that we can't predict consequences. You only know when you can predict the future based on inductive premises because that has worked in the past, but that itself is induction. So you're using induction to prove induction, which is circular. Natural facts are always subject to change at any point. There's no evidence that the sun would explode tomorrow or that the plane would actually cause infinite pain. The two will be scientific consensus or intuition solved. Those are both impact justified. Don't provide a universal obligation because there's always a risk that those scientific predictions have a risk of being wrong and aren't a binding source of ethics. They say specificity of the plan. This is irrelevant because it's a question of ethics, which used to be universal. They say certainty is solved by utilitarianism. This is wrong because it's based on predictions, which are inherently uncertain because there's always such that predictions are wrong. They say recus is circular. This flow is negative because util is regressive. You can always ask why you ought to follow pain and pleasure, so it is inviting, but asking why to follow practical reason debates a reason for reason, which concedes the authority of it, proves it's not circular because it's a question of our ability to question it in the first place. So it's the only thing we can follow, which filters out this turn. Now they say death outweighs. They drop every 1 and C response. First, it assumes consequences are framing filters out. Second, the fallacy of origin. Ethics is about what we do when we're alive. It's not a question of whether or not we ought to prevent death. Just because being alive is a prerequisite to ethics doesn't mean that it's necessary. That means it's an ethical action. I.e., I need to read books to gain philosophy and knowledge. That doesn't mean reading books is an ethical thing. They also drop that it defeats action because they're infinite things we can predict in the future. Also drop that you should use epistemic confidence because modesty is incoherent because it relies on other framers to make that claim. All of these were just drop arguments by the 1 hour. I listed them out in cross-text and they didn't respond to any of this, so we can't go for extinction ways in the 2 hour. They also dropped that and obviously all the calculated filters out. They say certainty solved by naturalism. This is wrong because it was handled by the induction stuff that was done above. They say reason is aggressive. It's not. I explained that when I was doing the reason I rejected above. They say there's objective truths like 1 plus 1 equals 2 flows negative because this proves a priori truths work, which answers their own pop no evidence. The butterfly effect irrelevant because I didn't read this objection. I'm just making a claim about predictions as a whole that there's a risk that they are wrong, which is just definitionally what a prediction is. They say mass statism didn't read this, AOD didn't read this. I don't know what Sid responded to in the 1 hour because none of these were even in the doc. Course God agrees happiness is irrelevant because there's no warrant in the re-highlighting. Course God's not the god of philosophy, and valid theory filters it out because this proves that our framework is a prerequisite, because in order to gain pleasure for an action, you need to use reason to do that action and to give it an intent in the first place, which is our framework solves pleasure, but theirs cannot because it cannot normally justify why to do action. Naturalism does not solve Recus. It was explained about the Recus page above. They say the Paul is a straw man. No idea what this our argument was. Now, I'll answer a few other things right here. TJ or actor spec, I think they warranted this on the extinction page. It's wrong. First, isot and not isn't can. Even if it's not possible to perfectly use Kant, we still have an obligation to do so. 2, limited state solves. A state can just not resolve contradictory obligation. 3, it collapses. States must have secretary. The US would never pass a policy that violate the Bill of Rights. 4, states are made of individuals, which means they do have intents. They say they shall waste on magnitude. This is wrong. First, they drop the R off and shall waste on magnitude because it affects everybody and it affects everyone immediately. It is also irreversible because you can't reverse freedom violations. I didn't understand what any of the other warrants were, and all of my framing down above proves why they need to have an obligation in order to do the F, which we've proven they haven't done because they don't meet any of the thresholds of meeting a certain universal ethic because of the valid theory, recurse, etc. explanation down above. Don't vote on a tour that's a TJF because the 1 hour was so blippy, and they said that non-resolutional theory was bad. We should filter all this out. Now, Kant negates. They dropped that it would be lying to do the plan because it violates the Constitution, and that it does dispute resolution, which is bad. Under Kantianism should have to reinvent the wheel and drop every response like 6 shall waste means this is not a 2 hour T and or there's no warrant for an RBI. I'll allow you to do it, which means that this solves concede reject non-resolutional theory. They re-highlight the wrong card, which means there's no RBI on that. I read Illinois, not Goodstein, and this is just a T shell. They shouldn't win for making weenie or counter trip to T shell because that's arbitrary, logical, and least debating theory out of fear of abuse. I answer the other theory shell. Spark is voter irrelevant. People have read Spark for years, like Justin, me, etc., and have not been pushed out of the community. Education was handled above. Classify everything for the TTS page. No drop the debate war, drop the argument solves, and it's just ruined by Sid reading Spark in the past and not getting defunded. And this is just like a silly argument and no warrant, use reasonability because anything else has substance crime. They just dropped like every meta-ethical justification.
I have 1 minute and 50 seconds, but I don't want to click the second button 50 times. I just have to wait 10 seconds.
Yes, how about you can just use mine.
Wait, what were the arguments under actor spec?
Pull up my flow. Is that and isn't can, even if it's not possible to perfectly use Kant. The rest of my framing proves an obligation to do so. 2, limited state solve. State could just not resolve contradicting obligations. 3, collapses. States must have side constraints. The US would never violate the Bill of Rights. 4, states are made of individuals who do have intents.
The impact to non-res theory bad was norming.
Norming and engagement. Or engagement and norming. And also the 1 hour is arbitrariness argument.
What was the internal link to engagement?
Because it's unlimited, or actually it's unlimited.
Okay. Okay. The order is the case, then the Kant page. Is everyone good?
Yeah.
Oh wait, sorry. Wait. Lydia, you good? Okay. You good?
Yeah.
Drop the plan. The plan prevents FONs, which cause nuclear conflict in China. Nuclear war causing extinction. Drop the analysis down below, would cause nuclear tornadoes, which would get rid of the Earth. Now, extinction matters. They dropped the framework choice. The 1 year argument was not the 1 year argument. Yes, they were TJS, but the other argument was a burdens argument. The app is good under our framework, which is sufficient because it still proves an obligation. This meets their definition of which is to provide more obligation. We don't when every single framework is affirmative because that would magnify negative conditions and kill fairness. This was not a theoretical argument, but a burdens argument about what the app must do, which means TJS bad is irrelevant to this condition. Now, the app is good under our framework, which is sufficient. Will be the calc index below, but this should alone guarantee an app out. The other argument they dropped is that the consensus of people think the plan is a good idea. This is an a priori reason to vote affirmative. Consider that debating is biased by things like speed, prep time, and coaches, etc., which means that it cannot come to a correct conclusion. But the consensus of experts that have spent hours determining whether or not the plan is a good idea do have a correct consensus, and they think the plan is a good idea. This means you should vote F independently of the debate itself, because this comes prior to that, because we've made structural arguments as to why debates are flawed. This was dropped, and alone means you should vote F. Now, the compic. Counterplan was not explained as solving the app, but cannot access dispute forms. It is not binding, which means there's no reason the US would not just do FON. This was implicit in the case analysis, and even if you think it's kind of new, you should not give the 2.5 pig solved case, because this was not an argument made in the 2.5, so you should just give it a disstat versus the case. Now, again, framework choice means we don't have to win our offense is good under Kant, we just have to win that's good under our framework of extinction. Now, win. The only thing we have to win in order to win this is beat the calculates. The only one they extended was the induction fails, but drop that even if induction broadly fails, it's true in the context of the case, because we won that our predictions are true. This is especially true given they've dropped the case, and they've not made a single other argument on the case page. Induction fails also doesn't impact. Conceded circularity was not tailored to an impact, even if it's circular. There's no reason why that's bad. I can do something and that might be circular, but there's no reason why that circularity means that the conclusion I come to is incorrect. Me doing algebra problems is kind of circular, but I still get correct answers and come to an a priori truth, which means that there's no impact to this, and this was just job, which means induction failed. It's not a sufficient calculate. The rest of these were arguments as to why Kant matters more, and things like naturalism, etc. But none of these answer our specific argument about predictions, and we've won that our framework might not be good, but our offense matters under our framework, and they dropped framework choice, the non-resolutional stuff. Don't think this answers our framework choice, because this was a burdens argument, not a theoretical argument. But reject non-resolutional theory did not have an impact. Norming, what is the impact of this? But they've conceded education outweighs its wide debate is funded, which means that it's prior to fairness and clash, and that education being present is necessary for the education to occur writ large. Their impact to non-resolution theory is norming. This assumes a model of debate that is funded and that debate exists, and engagement also assumes debate exists. Our argument was not non-resolutional theory bad. It was banning 1 year terminals is not jurisdictional. This was not conceded, and so you should not give them this argument. And it's also not cross-applied to the Kant page. Our argument is jurisdictional because it's about what educators should do, which means that the 1 year argument is irrelevant. Now, they've dropped that fill enables block recycling, which disincentivizes research and neat clash, which kills education. This is why debate is funded. It means that the app should get framework choice, that we don't have fill debates, but instead of debates, over the plan. Also, our interpretation maximizes accessibility because death counts are easy to count, which allows non-oppositional debate, which solves their residual offense about accessibility. But again, the plan is not very good because it can drop consensus matters most, above debating and all that.